It's amazing some of the people that we get to meet in our lives as U.S. senators. There's a medical doctor in Chicago whom I didn't know several years ago, but he and his wife have become dear friends in a short period of time. His name is Dr. Sahloul. He asked for an appointment in my office in Chicago a few years back, and I agreed to it. And he came in to tell me a story and to show me some pictures. He is originally from Syria, and he is the head of a Syrian-American medical society in the Chicagoland area. Because of the tragedy of the civil war in his home country of Syria, he has felt a special obligation to help. What he has done on many occasions now was to get as close to the action as he could in Syria, to provide medical assistance to the victims. Many times he risked his life to do it. And other doctors, some Syrian-American and some not, would join him in that effort. And he would bring me back photographs of what the casualties of war looked like in Syria. They were heartbreaking. Pictures of children who had been maimed and seriously injured by the barrel bombs of President Assad in Syria. Stories about parents killed in the bombings that continued day after weary day. And Dr. Sahloul would ask me, "What can you do, Senator? Can't you help us? Can't you stop this?" And of course, that civil war in Syria, which has gone on for 4 years, is almost intractable, almost impossible to define. There are so many forces fighting one another that at any given moment, your ally today may be your enemy tomorrow. And I tried, since meeting Dr. Sahloul, to do some things, to come out for a safe zone, a humanitarian zone in Syria, where even medical treatment and food and a safe shelter could be found for families that were facing these attacks. We've had some limited, and I underline limited, success in providing these safe zones, but it is a fact that the tragedy of Syria continues, even to this minute. If anything, today it is worse because of the bombing by the Russians, which I'm told has gone into areas which previously had been protected because of the citizen and civilian populations. The result is obvious. Millions, literally millions of people in Syria over the last 4 years have fled. They're running for their lives, and they're running from war, and they're running from terrorism. Dr. Sahloul recently wrote an article about his trip to the United States. He arrived in 1989, and he tells the story of coming to Chicago and feeling very much alone. He graduated from medical school in Damascus. He had a chance to practice medicine in Chicago, but he wasn't sure that he could ever really fit in. And he tells the story in 1989 of his first Thanksgiving in Chicago when a fellow doctor invited him to join her and her family for Thanksgiving dinner. It was a gracious gesture, a gesture of hospitality. And Dr. Sahloul has not forgotten it to this day. This article, which I'll place in the record after my comment, goes into some detail. Dr. Sahloul really wrote this article not just to tell his story, but to tell two other stories. The story of immigration, which is literally the story of America, and the story of Syrian refugees. His most recent trip to the region was to the island of Lesvos, which is part of Greece. I went there a few weeks ago with several of my Senate colleagues. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of refugees are flowing into Lesvos from Turkey. They have left Syria and Afghanistan, and they are working their way into Greece on their way, they hope, to refuge and shelter in Europe. It is impossible to describe, if you have not seen it yourself, what is going on here. But imagine if for a moment that you were so frightened of the prospect of your child or your wife dying in war that you said, tomorrow, pick up whatever you can carry, we're leaving. We cannot stay here. And if you look at these refugees as they travel, mothers and fathers carrying babies with toddlers and small children walking alongside of them, you realize how desperate they must be to leave everything behind and to head out on this journey of danger. One of the most dangerous parts of it is that trip across the Aegean Sea between Turkey and Greece. They have to pay smugglers 1,000 euros, which is over $1,000, for each adult and 500 euros for each child. They put them in these plastic boats. Some of them are given life jackets. The infants, too small for a life jacket, are literally given plastic water wings that we give to our infant children who play in the wading pools near our homes. That's all they have. They cram them into these boats. They strap on a motor, a Chinese motor, put just enough gasoline in that engine that they think will make it across, but not more, and try to find someone in the boat who will steer it. And they point to their destination, and they leave. Sometimes these boats have 50 or 60 people in them when they're only supposed to have 20 to travel safely. They are warned that as they come up to the shore in Greece of Lesbos or other islands, that they should immediately run into the rocks, scuttle the boat so that it sinks. Otherwise, they're told they'll be turned around and pushed back to Turkey, and they may not have enough gas to make it. And that's what happens. Dr. Sahloul tells a story of what happens when these boats are scuttled as they arrive in Greece. He tells of the drownings of little children who don't make it off the boat onto dry land, but literally drown right there. We saw one of those photos just a few months ago of a tiny 3-year-old boy who drowned just as he was about to make it into Greece. Dr. Sahloul tells that story so that some of us, all of us, will understand the desperation of these refugees. It is now very popular among politicians to blame the Syrian refugees for terrorism in America. We have not accepted that many refugees in our country. The numbers are about 2,000. And at this point, not a single person among those refugees has been arrested and charged with terrorism. And yet you would think that these Syrian refugees are the greatest threat there is to America. I put this item in the record here so that those who follow this debate and follow the proceedings of the floor can read firsthand and for themselves Dr. Sahloul's story and the story of these Syrian refugees.